I'm super excited. Today I'm going to teach some of my favorite content, and I'm calling it Motivating Your Career Coaching Clients. And let's start out with a little introduction here of Gazelle and I. And Gazelle, I'll turn it over to you.
For myself or for you first? Let's start with you first. Or for myself?
Go ahead and introduce yourself, and I might add something.
Okay. My name is Gazelle Javantash. I am a colleague and student of Helen's, as well as working with her on creating programs in marketing, including this webinar series. So I'm really excited to be here today. And these are some things that I have learned in my courses from Helen already, but it's always great to hear other people's perspectives and questions as we go through the material. So turn it back over to you.
Great. Well, I am the founder of the Career Coach Entrepreneur Academy, which is a certificate program, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. Some of you know that I've created the Elevations Career Assessment. That's also going to be part of our presentation today. And I'm just here doing what I love to do. And nothing has changed over the 30 years that I've been in career development. So if you respond well to passion and excitement, you're going to enjoy this presentation. And I'm just going to dive in. I'm so happy to have you with me. Those of you who have known me for years, I'm so happy to have you here. And those of you who are new, I'm so glad. So I'm having a lovely experience. There we go. Maybe this will work. Yay. All right, so there's 4 basic components to the presentation today. We're going to start out talking about patience and persistence. Then I'm going to talk about values, accountability, and temperament. So this is not your, I've heard it before, motivation speech. This is all going to be stuff that I've really come to over the course of many years. And I want to start out with patience and persistence. And I think that often when we work with clients, we don't address this as directly as we could. And I want to take just a minute and say, put whatever hat on for context that you need today. If you are a career coach and you're working at Golden Sierra and you're seeing clients, perhaps your hat will be how I'm going to help my clients. Some of you are here because I promised you an uplift and you're going to get it. And some of you are here because maybe you're thinking about becoming a career coach. And I want you just to be paying attention to your gut as you're going along and seeing if this feels like something you might want to do. So back to patience and persistence. I think a good focus on both of these is really important. The very nature of going after a complex goal is it's going to take time. And when clients come to you and they are impatient and anxious, the very nature of your clients, it's really good to directly address these 2 elements. And they're not easy. It's not easy to be patient when you're up against a big obstacle, which is a career choice, a career change, a difficult boss, deciding to quit, starting a business, whatever that looks like, or persisting until you actually get a quality outcome. So I think both of those are really important. And I'm going to, as I proceed, occasionally remind you, please give us feedback, ask questions, or if you agree, let us know, and let us interact with you. I think it makes everything so much better. And I am going to, as you look at this very beefy slide, please know that I'm going to send you this deck tomorrow or this afternoon. So just don't start taking notes. I'm going to give it to you, all right? And I'm going to just walk you through this question pattern. This is the only question pattern that I have in our presentation today. As you may know, the quality of your questions are usually the quality of your outcome when you're coaching someone. And if you wanted to explore, I would think fairly early in the career coaching relationship, the content of patience and persistence, here's a really good way to go after it. Start with your client by asking, what is your ideal timeline to achieve your goal? If you've done this for a little while, you know most people have pretty unrealistic expectations or no expectations. So Just getting a sense of agreement on that. And how will it impact you if it takes longer than you expect? Yeah, right. Okay. And so then we're starting to manage expectations a little bit, and it's up to them to manage their expectations. Describe an accomplishment in your past that required extraordinary patience. And coaches use this kind of question to prove to the client that they have the capacity to get through this, that they've done it before. And further, what allowed you to persist towards your goal? What are your superpowers? Do you have friends, resources, internal resilience, spirituality? What is it that allows you to persist towards your goal? And obviously you as a career coach are taking notes because you're getting really incredible, powerful information that you're going to keep reminding your client as you go through the process. What will you do when you face an obstacle in your job search or your career transition or your life? What will you do? Are you going to cry and freak out? Are you going to give up? Or are you going to keep going? Sometimes your clients have never actually been listened to this way. Think about that. It is such a big deal. What you do with your clients when you're listening and asking these questions is you're seeing them. And for so many people, they haven't been seen that way very much or ever. And then the next question, what is your source of motivation? Usually the first answer to that will be fairly superficial. Well, I got to get a job. Well, money, taking care of my family, not that that's superficial per se, or that any of those are not important. But then follow that question. Famous career coaching strategy, when you've been given something but not enough, what is a deeper source of motivation for you? And notice that I paused. When you're asking questions, give people space to answer the question. And when you've gone from an A level, what is the source of your motivation, to what is a deeper source of motivation for you, that's a powerful question that needs some space. And then you can end this pattern of questions by asking, how can I support you in the achievement of your goal? In other words, let's co-create this relationship. This is going to be a partnership, all right? So I'm curious if anybody wants to respond to those questions, if you thought that those were useful as I'm moving forward. So the next step, after you've addressed face on, head on, patience and persistence, then it's time for you to uncover some key information. And I like to use an assessment to do this. Use an assessment that explores values, enjoyable skills, interests, and temperament. Or personality, or you might use different words for those kinds of things in your experience. But I think if you're missing any one of those four, you're putting you and your client at a disadvantage. And so I think it's important. And I will mention that Elevations, the assessment that I've created, includes all four of those. And I was very intentional. I worked for years trying to patch together checklists and card sorts and interest inventories that weren't designed to work together. And I think in honor of your client, you want the most efficient delivery system. And you want a delivery system that makes them feel smart, that increases their self-esteem, that increases their motivation. And frankly, standardized tests feel like a test. And so therefore, often the power goes to the assessment as opposed to the individual. And I think that's not the best choice. So create a process that empowers your client and allow them to author their future. So already we've given you two pieces here that could easily take several sessions if you're in private practice. And if you're working in a workforce development center where your time may be more limited, you can upsize or downsize these steps to suit the availability of your time. Even if you just do some of this, again, I'm just going to really try to motivate you. Taking the time to see your client and ask the really powerful questions and give them a chance to tell you who they are is just so important. Now here we get to a specific strategy, and I call this values motivation. And you want to solicit top values from your client, or if you're here for you, I want you to identify your top values. What are they? What is your why? What makes you get up out of bed every morning, and why should we care, right? Or why should you care? And this is so essential. If you're coaching someone into a new career, if you're helping them leave a career that they don't like, getting them clear about what matters is a huge first step. Now, I like to determine 3 to 5. I'm kind of a fan of 3. Maybe that's where my memory is these days. Define those values and have the client give you their definition. That's really important, because you'd be surprised what motivation or what meaningful work or what variety means. It may mean something very different to them than what you thought it meant. And then once you've got the definitions of those values, I want you to ask your client to post them somewhere where they're going to see them. And so that could be the bathroom mirror on a yellow sticky tag, or a yellow, blue sticky tag. Or it could be, my 2 favorite strategies that have worked for years for me is I recite my values before I put my feet on the floor in the morning. Mine are meaningful work, helping others, and having fun. And I think actually, if I ever had to start my day at this point without thinking of those 3 things, I'd be paranoid because I have just gotten so used to it. And then I have it in my signature line on my email, and I don't explain it. It's there for me, not for you, you know? And so it keeps reminding me. Or I have had clients who have made, pieces of art, or they've created screensavers for their phone. I've had people come up to me years after my workshops, and they've got their top 3 values, a picture of their wife sitting next to the campfire, and telling me how it got them through some really difficult times. So that's really powerful. And then explain to your client why, all right? So in this job transition, in this career search, in this achievement of this very lofty goal that you have set for yourself, we're going to need some strength. And there's just no source of strength that I can harness that's more powerful than your values. So will you agree with me that we're going to be able to talk about your values as we're going through this? And I might even ask you to use your values as the basis for your decision making. Remember this piece. I'm going to ask you to use your values as a basis for decision making. So for example, when your client comes to you and says, I'm going to take this job, I really don't want it, but I'm terrified that I can't find anything better. Ah, interesting. You mind if we talk a little bit about using your values as a basis for this decision, right? And you're not trying to talk them in or out of anything. You're just trying to give them a chance to be the best version of themselves, right? And I have to honestly tell you, as I've been going through the world for a number of years now, I don't see other coaches using this piece. I don't see them using it, and I think it's powerful, and I want you to try it. So now I'm gonna layer on. So I want you to start with patience and persistence. Then I want you to solicit information from your client that's going to allow you to have a platform of information that includes values, enjoyable skills, interests, and temperament. Now today, I'm not going to talk about interests or enjoyable skills. And so while I've got your attention, I want to tell you what those do for you. Enjoyable skills are the source of your client's energy. Energy. When you do something all day long that makes you miserable, you're tired, right? And when you do something that you enjoy, the day flies by and you feel pretty good at the end of the day. And you're actually nice to your family and might have energy for a walk, all right? Arguably, energy is so central to motivation, I can't even emphasize it. I mean, how do you get motivated if you don't have any energy, right? So understanding your client's enjoyable skills is really important. And then for those of you who have been a career coach for a while, you know there's always this pressure. How am I going to know what they should do? How am I going to know what they should do? At some point, they're going to ask me, you know what? It's not your job. It's not your job. But it is your job to give them the resources to get to the function and the industry and the what, that literal practical outcome of what is that career that I'm going after. And without an interest pattern, without a list of interests, you're out of luck. I think that getting, well, I don't want to get too far into it, but when you look at something like the strong interest inventory, you don't get to see their interests. You get to see the jobs that result from their interests. I think when you can look at their interests and you can interview them about their interests, you get really clear about, hey, you know what? You've just really got to be in a creative arts sort of environment. And they're like, yeah, but you know, I've tried that, I'm not sure, and then there's not much work there. It's like, trust me, there's enough creativity in the world. Let's make sure we get you into that function. So to summarize that, values, we just talked about, enjoyable skills, source of energy, interest helps you get to a practical outcome in your process, and temperament, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Now I want to talk about accountability. Careers going sideways, life going sideways, life being difficult, challenging, is difficult and leads us to feel sometimes like a victim. And as you can see in this chart, which I call the choices model, feeling like a victim can lend to making excuses, becoming defensive, blaming other people. And if they're still employed, they're probably not really a terrific employee when they're in that space. You and I both know that the obstacles that people are facing can be real and they can be staggering, right? So I'm not saying that this accountability agreement is a lack of compassion, far from it. But it is, when you're in the victim loop, I'm curious if anybody would be willing to give me some ideas in the chat. What is the impact on the individual when they feel like a victim? What is the impact of the, you know, what is their behavior? What is their attitude? What is their mindset? Give me some ideas of what you get when you're dealing with someone who is in the victim loop. Are we getting anything, Gazelle?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to say, I don't want to answer for everybody, so I'm going to give everybody a chance to kind of chime in before I do. Okay. So, Helen, why don't we kind of go through what this means a little bit in terms of being, you know, having someone get into a victim loop versus taking accountability and you know, having to, yes. Would that be helpful for everyone?
Gazelle, there's a couple notes in the chat.
Oh, I see it. Playing defense, not offense. Yeah. Yes. Yes, this is true. Very true. If I mean, the idea is that it's the world outside that's the problem, and
right.
And in that sense, you're not able to control the world outside. You're really only able to control yourself and your own actions. And if you get stuck in that loop, as you can see here, you're always kind of end up in the same place, and you have a choice. In how to approach these things. Am I on the right track there, Helen?
Oh, absolutely. So let me give an example, and then I'll move on to accountability. So right on, yeah, defensive, not offensive. So some of you know that I published my first book in January 2020, and then I re-released it in March 2021. And that was a task that took a lot of persistence and patience, and was values driven. It was all of that. And when the book was first released, I found out very quickly that the publishing company that I had hired had not done the proofreading that I paid them for. So that was publicly embarrassing and disappointing. And also, what made it more difficult was that people in my personal life fell into the victim loop about it and wanted to just be angry. And I kept trying to be accountable and be a problem solver. And so that little nuance is really important when you think about career coaching, because first of all, you have to figure out a way to have your client take ownership, to be in the problem solving mode, to be resourceful and thinking, to stay in that space, even when something like what happened to me, which was really embarrassing and sad. If I had dug in there and then let the other people, the people who loved me in my life wanted me to be in the victim loop. They wanted me to be angry and upset. And I kept saying, that doesn't solve anything. And so it can get really complex. And when you've got a client who's going through a difficult job search, and maybe they're being unfairly rejected and it's not going very well, they've been spending a lot of time working very hard, they could begin to start feeling like a victim, or worse, the family and system around them could start feeling like a victim. So this is a very challenging scenario. And if you take the time to share the choices model, or just talk about the concept of when you're a victim, you're unmotivated, you're sad, you're blaming, you can feel it even as I'm talking. You can feel the suppression of energy. It's just, it's a viral negativity, and it really, and I think ultimately leads to illness, mental illness, physical illness, lack of wellness, lack of motivation to drink the water, to get the sleep, to do the basics that you need to do. And so I think talking to your client, talking about, would we be willing to agree that even when you are justifiably wrong,
aside from, yeah, just getting that same crew here, and I appreciate it very much.
So hang on, if I can just,
Elizabeth, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, that would be great.
Bye.
Elizabeth, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, that would be great. Thank you. Can you mute her, Helen? You muted yourself.
You want to listen to me? What is this? Okay. All right. And you know what's really cool is that in the magic of love, the chat just showed up, which is so nice. I can see it now. All right. I love you too, Alicia. All right. Accountability versus victim. What I wanted to say is you make an agreement with your client to take an accountable perspective throughout the work that you do together. Does that mean they don't have their feelings? No, that's not it. Can they be angry? Yes. Can they be discouraged? Yes. They should have their feelings. And it's a matter of how much you want to engage in that. And, you know, sometimes you're going to get the timing wrong. If you say to your client, okay, so how are we going to get in problem solving mode? And they're like, I'm not ready for problem solving mode. Like, okay, all right, a little more time there. But what I do find is that it is actually a practice thing. I practice all the time. I'll tell you one place I love to practice. I practice when I go to shop at Costco, because Costco always offers you an opportunity to feel like a victim, whether you're being crammed into another cart, or whether someone cuts you off, And I just keep thinking, I'm not going to let that happen to me. So teach your clients to practice accountability, make an accountability agreement. And I'm as enthusiastic about this strategy as I am about the victim issue. I mean, about the values issue. I don't think that we operate from our personal values as often as we could. And I think the world conspires to put us in the victim loop. It's just incredibly popular and easy to feel like a victim. And so, Phil, I think you can be a victim for one discrete issue while being positive in general. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And so allowing for the complexity of humanity, where there may be certain things that you feel powerless about, but other things that you are willing to say, there's something I can do here. And yeah, so it's got its nuance for sure. So
I think, as you pointed out, Helen, there is a trend right now to feel united in victimhood in a way. and feeling like you, especially with things happening with the pandemic, the idea of personal responsibility. Yes, there's some things that are outside forces beyond our control. You know, things are closed or on lockdown or, you know, what have you. People have financial struggles as a result. Those are outside forces. But there's obviously, as we're talking about, choice in the matter. And there are things that anybody can do, even in situations like that, to improve, you know, better improve your own situation, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Right. I mean, there's historical stories of people who arguably had nothing. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever read Man's Search for Meaning all the way back in high school, but that was the first time that I really became aware of the fact that even somebody maybe in a concentration camp could recognize that the one thing no one could take away from him was his own sense of purpose. And so in that moment, he saved his life. So this is a powerful, powerful concept. And then I want to move on to the next aspect of motivation, which is temperament-based motivation. And you could kind of call this communicating to the needs of others. As a coach, as a person, we tend to assume, not consciously, but kind of unconsciously, that other people have the same sources of motivation that we do. And actually, there's nuance. There are some commonalities, but some specific differences. And so the 4 temperaments that I use in the assessment elevations is the organizer, the liberator, the facilitator, and the innovator. And I wanted to share with you the differences and some key elements of motivational sources, if you will, organizational sources of motivation. So if you find out that your client is a dominant organizer, and I share that concept, dominant, because we all have all 4 of the temperament preferences in us, and we can actually choose to operate from one or the other. It's not like you're labeling somebody when they have a dominant organizer or a dominant liberator or whatever. But we do know, and now based on scientific research being done in New York City by a lady named Helen Fisher, that temperament is part of our biology, it's part of our nature, and it even has some chemical reactions in our brain, which I'll share with you in just a minute. So if you find out that your client has a dominant organizer, financial security is more significant to them than maybe people who don't have that preference. Good salary and benefits really matter. They operate on clear goals and clear expectations. So if you want to motivate your client and they have an organizer preference, whether you have to have a system, a process, steps, be able to tell them how, you know, what's next, give them homework. Lists and finishing things. So organizer preference, the brain chemistry there is when they finish something, when they get something done, their brain floods them with serotonin, and that's very pleasant. And so encouraging your organizer preference clients to have a list, to check things off as they're going along, super important. Deadlines, how, you know, letting them know what you want, when you want it. Follow through and dependability is really important. And they are very motivated by opportunities for advancement. And as you're listening to me, you're thinking, Helen, that's kind of like the basic list anyone would have. Well, actually, not really. Let's keep going. And you're going to relate to all 4 of these, by the way. You're going to relate to all the lists, and so will your clients. But if you really pay attention, you'll find that one of these might pop out. All right. So if you have a dominant preference for the liberator, the motivation comes from excitement and intensity, clear rewards, and a feeling of winning. This is a very visceral preference. It's actually a lot larger in the population than you might think. It's about 38% of the general population. These people tend to want to be working outdoors. They tend to be want to working with their hands. They're attracted to things that are dangerous. They are our firefighters, our emergency service personnel, and many of the people in the Army. But they probably fix your bike, and they are welders. They are people who want to be doing things that are practical. They love variety. They like having options. Are you noticing it feels like the same word over and over again here? Flexible schedule, options, variety, change, movement, fun. These are really incredibly valuable contributors to our labor market and to our world. But our society, if we can look at it from a US cultural perspective, we don't look at that list and say that's success. And that's why it's really important for you to understand this and validate that for your clients. I had a client who clearly, she had been in the restaurant industry, she became a chef, she was delivering food during the pandemic and she loved it, right? I'm like, this is definitely, and so I explained to this woman and I described it for her and she was just blown away that I understood who she was because she had never heard of that before. She had never heard her preferences defined as valid. And now I would think that we might have a few people who can relate to this on this call, since people who go into coaching tend to have a fairly significant facilitator preference, not always. And so some of the sources of motivation here are recognition and encouragement. And you may not need a lot of recognition and encouragement, but if you've got a client that has this dominant preference, and I'm going to personalize this and be brave, right? I can remember from my very first real job out of college, my boss clearly did not have a facilitator preference. And she said, look, you'll know if you do anything wrong, and if you do something right, you should be able to validate yourself. Wonderful. That did nothing for me. In fact, it put me in terror because now I knew I was only going to get negative feedback. Positive feedback. Yes, facilitators really thrive. Encouragement. And, I want to do a shout out to somebody who I just adore. His name is Michael Alasso. And he has this feedback formula called TSP. Truthful, specific, and positive. Truthful, it was easy for you to say, specific and positive. And so when you give feedback, identify the behavior that you like, be really specific about it, and give them a full-hearted feedback, and you'll see what an incredible outcome that is. Facilitator preference, there is a desire, a need to live up to their potential. So there's an existential motivation that you need to tap into. Ask them, do you feel that you're living up to your potential? Really important. Helping others. So the chemical that bathes the facilitator preference is dopamine. Yes, dopamine. And so that's when they are helping someone, when they feel like the light bulb moment has happened, they've done something significant, they experience literally chemically dopamine. And so I hear you saying, Helen, you didn't tell us. Oh yeah, I did. I'm good. Amazing. Okay, so serotonin, this is the one I missed. And now I'm getting unclear. Because I think actually the liberator is dopamine and facilitator is oxytocin. Thank you, Lord, for reminding me what that was. I thought I was going to lose it. Some other sources of motivation for the facilitator: good communication. Facilitators absolutely are motivated by life balance and a feeling of connection. Probably the worst thing a facilitator can do is isolate, and they will at the point at which they feel discouraged. So motivation requires a feeling of connection. And then the fourth is the innovator sources of motivation. And they are motivated by competence. And this probably was the toughest one for me to become fully capable, I guess I want to say, working with, because people have a really strong innovator preference, will test your competence. They might debate, they might challenge, they might be really tough on you or even critical. And if you know you have an innovator, a strong innovator, you cannot take that personally. And you can just show up as an expert, because that, if you get the proper training, that's what you'll be able to do, is show up as an expert. And you will command the respect of someone who has an innovator preference. Innovators are so totally motivated by learning and research. They're completely curious. Their work has to be challenging. They're very independent, and they are systems thinkers. So if you want to motivate them, your process needs to make sense to them. It needs to be logical. They're motivated by originality. I love to call innovators front end people. They actually look for jobs that have been newly created or no one's done it before. They like to be minimally supervised, and they usually don't really enjoy supervising other people, which I don't want to go too far on this, but it's quite a conundrum for them, because they tend to be natural leaders. They're very commanding. People tend to follow them. And so they end up elevating their career to a position of supervisory responsibility, and then find that they really don't like it as much as the working, as the hands-on work. So that's just a little tidbit for you. And when I say direct communication is motivating, I'm really being politically correct. Innovators can be blunt. They can be maybe not super empathetic. And one of the last things I'll say here is that they might find something wrong with every idea that you guys come up with in terms of options. And I'm really hoping, even though I can't see your faces right now, that there's some nodding going on there, that you're recognizing people in your life who come from these 4 places. I just encourage you to, one of my favorite stories about an innovator who did this, his name is Kevin, I'll never forget it. And every single career option that we had on the list, he had come up with a reason why it wouldn't work. And I finally just said, oh, I get you. I said, and so what we're going to do is we're going to stop having that particular option in your menu of choices. And so we're going to find reasons why these could work. And he stared at me like, what are you talking about? And then he laughed, because basically, I logically speaking, if you're going to find a career, you're going to find something about it that you don't like, and that's not going to get us where we need to go. And the chemical that's released in the brain of an innovator when they are competent, learning, challenged, independent, all these things, is just testosterone. And if you're curious, I think you know that both men and women can have this preference. So it's not necessarily male dominated. So I'm going to jump up here and let's get some feedback on all of that, because I just gave you a bunch of information. Just feedback could be just interesting, or maybe a question.
I'm going to jump in with a question, Helen. How would you, when we talk about how some of these things are similar, but you can also see the difference when you begin to work with clients, what are some sort of questions or things that would help you identify what kind of client you're working with, sort of in a intake kind of way when you're first beginning to work with a client? Obviously you're going to suss certain things out in conversation, and your initial opinions may change, but just as far as an intake, so that you can start as a coach to address it.
So yeah, there's a couple of ways you could do that. I mean, first of all, just listening for clues, and that takes some time. The best source of much deeper dive information about temperament is my book, Elevate Your Career, Live a Life You're Truly Proud of. I have case studies, I have descriptions, and I have an appendix all about temperament in that book. And so the first step, if you're going to try to assess temperament in an intake without using an assessment, you're going to have to be a student for a little while and learn these. And then once you learn them, you can ask questions even from these little lists that I've just given you and start seeing which one seems to resonate most with your clients. And then you can validate it by giving them an assessment that identifies temperament. So I'm gonna keep moving on, and we'll keep an eye on that chat in case there's something else about all this. So I'm gonna sit back. We are not going to run out of time. I just want to kind of, for those of you who might have joined us a little late, I just want to tell you that this webinar has been recorded, and that I also am going to be sending this to you, everyone who signed up, whether they made it to the session or not. And I'm also going to post this to my YouTube channel. And so what that means is you could actually assign this to a client. And if you don't have a lot of time, ask them to go through the webinar and then have a conversation about it afterwards. And that is really efficient. And so I wanted to, so where we've been, we started with patience and persistence. And I gave you a slate of questions to help you kind of get your client thinking about patience and persistence and timing. And then I encouraged you to use an assessment of some sort that will give you a platform of information that's empowering for your client. And then I think values are resilience on steroids. I mean, I think they're really powerful, and I think you can utilize values in a way that can make a difference in your life and a difference in your client's life. And then I think when you add accountability to that, you're taking things to a level that is, it's life-changing. And then if you customize your communication with the knowledge of temperament, I've just kind of given you, in my world, kind of the essence of 30 years of experience in career coaching, things that have really made a difference. But I had to have a what else, because of course that's the most famous coaching question on the planet. What else, Helen? And so what else? These are things that, you know, just are other ideas that might make sense, and sometimes things that are underutilized. Like, I talk to my clients about sleep, nutrition, and exercise. I make sure they drink enough water. I offer them books and YouTube videos. And I also think, especially right now, that a lot of people are looking for short-term training programs or certificate programs. I don't know if you've heard the statistics, but right now about 60% of middle-income Americans are considering a career change. I'm going to repeat that just in case you spaced out or didn't hear me. 60% of middle-income Americans are considering making a career change. And
not to mention, Helen, I'm sure maybe some people have seen articles over the last couple of weeks. Americans are quitting their jobs in droves and looking for other things other than just financial satisfaction. So
it's true. Yeah, it's called the big quit, and it's historical. It's unprecedented. Sorry to use that word. And what it reflects is confidence in the labor market. People are not afraid that they can't find something else. So the shortage of available work, the big quit going on, and the career changes going on is the absolute perfect segue to what I wanted to share with you next, which is I wanted to just take a little bit of time to talk about the certification program that I founded called the Career Coach Entrepreneur Academy. And before I go into it, I'm going to totally put you on the spot, Gazelle, and ask you, you know, what was your experience in completing the certificate program?
I found it immensely helpful. I'm actually still working. I have one more session of an individual
Mentoring.
What is it?
Mentoring.
Mentoring. Yes, I was struggling for the word. And I just thought that the lessons were really timely for everything right now. It's not like old information from years ago that's maybe not relevant in the middle of an unprecedented time, as much as we hate, you know, using that word. And I just felt really prepared coming out of it to want to be a coach with someone, who's struggling with this area. And, from what I just hear in my personal and professional circles, there's just a lot of potential for clients and being able to help people in this area. So I just felt very prepared to do this.
I appreciate that. So here's the nuts and bolts of it. It's a 14-week program. You do get live instruction, and that live instruction is 2.5 hours weekly. So it's really manageable. We have had people who are full-time employees. Bless her heart, we had a woman who completed the entire 14-week program while she was going through breast cancer treatment. So, and she said it was the best thing she could have done. So, the other thing about the Academy is that it's really a gift for you. You will grow personally, and you will enjoy the experience, but you're also going to be thoroughly trained. A path to your International Coach Federation certification. And if you don't know what ICF is, just know that coaching is a profession that has credentials that are recognizable, and this would be your first step in that process. You'll learn about the Elevations Career Assessment, the Elevations Career Cycle Model. We give you a lot of coaching practice and coaching feedback, and we help you launch. If you want to be a business owner, we help you with that. And as Gazelle mentioned, we give you one-on-one attention, 3 hours of it, in fact, because there's no program that's going to address the unique situations that you are facing. And so we wanted to do that. And I don't want to vote for my favorite part, but I'm going to say that I think I'm pretty proud of the mentoring aspect of the program. And I want to thank you for taking your precious time to be here to learn about coaching and motivation and just the whole subject of how to put people on fire in their lives. I think that's what we all do this for. And if you choose to enroll in the Academy by July 2nd, preparing for the next cohort that starts on July 6th, so it's perfect timing, just a couple weeks away, I want to give you a 4th mentoring session. So you'll go from 3 to 4. And it's a big deal. And so I'm just really excited to offer that to you. And that at this point, I want to turn it over to you, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see your beautiful faces and I can see the chat. And I'm just anything that you would like to ask about any aspect of my career, of the presentation that I just made, or about the Academy. What questions do you have?
Helen, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Phil was asking that some of them coach as an incidental part of their primary or real job, which is actually, Phil, exactly why I took the course initially. I was doing a lot of mentoring and coaching with my team and my direct reports. And so I initially started it that way. And then I started thinking about it as a side option to offer those same skills to other people. So I think, that's an option to discuss, and Helen can speak to that. And also there's a question about the certification providing a path to ICF, Helen.
So good. So I'm looking at these, and thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. And I did, as I was walking along and thinking about offering this to you, I hope it's been an uplift for you and to give you personally some ideas that you can implement in your lives. And some of us coach as an incidental part of our primary real job. And I wonder if the Academy is the right option. Academy Light is an option. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Elizabeth. Actually, we only have to honor what you're asking. We did have a 4-week option, and I'm just going to be flat out with you. I didn't like the results. I did not feel that I was able to get them to a level that I was proud of. And so the 14-week is the program that I'm offering starting on the 6th of July. And I can see that Alicia's nodding. It takes a while for people to bond and for people to trust and for people to dive in and learn. And I had people in the 14-week program that were as skilled and experienced as you are, Elizabeth, and they grew and they were happy with their outcomes. So I think it is something you might want to consider. And oh boy, okay, so I don't want to become too bureaucratic here, but the path to your ICF credential requires that you take 60 hours of both live and self-study, and that is what we offer. The Career Coach Entrepreneur Academy will give you those 60 hours. In addition, you're going to be working with coaches, you're going to be coaching, and you're going to be getting feedback, and you're going to be able to start accumulating some of the hours that you need to become an ICF credential coach. And there's a test you have to pass to become an ICF credential coach. I have study guides and videos all the way through the academy so that you're ready to take your test. So is it completely preparing you? No. Oh, and you also need 10 hours of mentor coaching to qualify for your ICF credential. We're going to give you 3. So that's why I say it's a path. And I think it's really an empowering path, because by the time you've gotten all that done, you're like, well, phew, I might as well finish the darn thing. I hope that was clear enough. So I'm going to sign off early because I think that makes everybody happy, and I like making people happy. But is there any feedback or any final comments? Please feel free to unmute. I'd love to talk to you for just a second. Any feedback for me? Was this helpful? What part?
Question. Loved your presentation, by the way. I was glued to the screen the entire time, even if my camera was off. But I don't know if you mentioned this and I just missed it. What types of assessment do you recommend to help explore people's values, skills, interests, all that good stuff?
I am proud of the assessment that I've developed called Elevations. And I would not have, as a facilitator innovator who hates details, I would have never gone through the hell of putting together an assessment if I didn't think that it needed to be on the planet. So feel free to reach out to me, Helen at helenhoriza.com, and I'll send you a free registration code and you can try it and see if you like it.
Awesome, thank you.
I've been a user of Helen's Elevations for over 12 years, Suzanne, and it's for students as well as mature and those people who are going through their encore, as well as people in transition and in organizations. It is the best assessment of all I've ever done over 30 years of doing human resources.
Thank
So
you.
feel proud of that. Do it, enjoy it.
Any questions about, well, let me make an offer and then I'm going to close this, or then I'm not going to be finishing early. Please just know that I'm really easy to reach. And if you go to elevateyourcareer.com, which is our main hub, elevateyourcareer.com, there's information about the academy, the assessment, and our organizational work. And there's a place for you to just get a little appointment with me. It's really easy. I'm super excited to run the July 6th cohort for the academy, and I hope some of you will be thinking about joining us. And the reason why is because we've already made our mistakes and we've smoothed a few things out. So we're really ready to have you join us. And I am so honored to be in your presence, all of you. I know how much experience is on this call right now. So you guys have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you soon.